Wait, what? My mother-in-law and sister-in-law have been betting on our marriage?
I asked my husband Robbie, my face filled with shock and my voice quivering. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue, instantly shattering the peaceful and happy life I once had and kicking off this family tempest. Hey everyone, welcome to Worldly Whispers. Let's get started. I'm Lily. At the beginning of this year, I married my beloved Robbie. Robbie is 26 years old this year. He has a bright smile and a warm personality, and he is the most important person in my life. Our wedding was extremely romantic. The sun gently shone on the venue filled with delicate flowers. Our family and friends gathered together to witness us making a solemn vow to be together for a lifetime. At that time, I was full of beautiful visions for the future life, firmly believing that our marriage would be as happy as a fairy tale and go smoothly all the way. 2 months after getting married, we went to Robbie's parents' house to celebrate my birthday. Robbie's parents, the Thompsons, are both in their 50s. My mother-in-law, Emily, is a passionate and extremely good cook. Every time I enter her house, the table full of delicious food can always arouse my appetite in an instant. My father-in-law, David, is a friendly and talkative car enthusiast. Once he starts talking about cars, he becomes very excited and talks non-stop. And my sister-in-law, Sarah, is only 22 years old, full of youthful vitality. However, due to our different hobbies, we seldom interacted except at family gatherings. The birthday dinner was going on in a warm and cheerful atmosphere. After the meal, we sat around the living room, chatting comfortably. Just then, I overheard Sarah saying on the phone, "Today is my brother's best friend's birthday." My heart skipped a beat, and I was extremely puzzled. I'm clearly Robbie's wife. Why would I be called his best friend? After Sarah hung up the phone, I suppressed my confusion and asked as calmly as possible, "Sarah, why do you say I'm Robbie's best friend? I'm his wife." Sarah, however, looked matter of fact and replied nonchalantly, "You two are just best friends. Mom and Dad have always said so." This answer left me at a loss for words. Before this, I had never noticed that Robbie's parents had such a way of addressing me. What on earth was going on? A few days later, due to work cooperation, I went to Emily's office. When introducing me to her colleague, Emily actually blurted out again, "This is my son's best friend." At that moment, I was so embarrassed that I blushed to the roots of my hair and stammered, I'm his wife." The colleague looked confused, and Emily just smiled slightly and didn't give any further explanation. When we were alone, I finally couldn't help asking, "Emily, why do you always call me Robbie's best friend? I'm your daughter-in-law." She, just like Sarah, replied casually, "You two are just like that. What's the big deal?" I was extremely frustrated and completely unable to understand the hidden meaning behind their strange behavior. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep, and told Robbie about this. He was also very confused and claimed that he had never noticed this way of addressing by his family before. Robbie promised me that he would find a suitable time to have a private talk with his parents and figure out the reason behind all this. However, I never expected that this was just the beginning of this family crisis. The subsequent things were far more complicated and difficult than I imagined, and a bigger storm was quietly brewing. The day after Robbie's revelation, I woke up feeling as if a heavy weight was pressing down on my chest. The betrayal I felt was like a festering wound, refusing to heal. Robbie, still seething with anger, was pacing back and forth in the living room, muttering under his breath about how he couldn't believe his own mother and sister could stoop so low. "Robbie, we need to calm down and think this through," I said, trying to soothe his nerves. "Getting angry won't solve anything." He stopped in his tracks and looked at me, his eyes filled with pain and disappointment. "I know, Lily, but this is unforgivable. How could they do this to us?" We decided to take a step back and give ourselves some time to process the situation. I went to my home office, hoping to lose myself in work, but my mind kept wandering back to the betrayal. Every time I thought about Emily and Sarah's cruel bet, a wave of sadness and anger washed over me. How could they treat our marriage, our relationship, like a game? In the afternoon, Robbie came into my office. He looked a bit calmer, but the pain in his eyes was still evident. "I've been thinking, Lily. We can't just let this go. We need to do something to fix this, for our sake and for our family." I nodded in agreement. "I know. I've been thinking the same. I really think we should consider family therapy. Maybe a neutral third party can help us all communicate and work through this together." Robbie let out a deep sigh. I know you're right, but I'm still so angry with them. I don't know if I can sit in the same room with my mom and sister right now without losing my temper. I took his hand in mine. I understand, but we have to try. They're still our family, and we need to find a way to heal these wounds. If we don't, this could tear us apart for good. After much discussion, Robbie finally agreed to the idea of family therapy. We started searching for a good family therapist in our area. It was a daunting task, sifting through countless reviews and making numerous phone calls, but we were determined to find someone who could help us. During this time, Robbie's father, David, who was still living with us, tried to talk to us. He looked ashamed and remorseful. I'm so sorry, you two. I should have put a stop to this. I should have told you about the bet from the beginning. Robbie looked at his father with a mix of hurt and disappointment. Dad, you should have. This has really messed everything up. I don't know if I can trust them again. David hung his head. I know, son. I'm just as disappointed in them as you are. But please give them a chance to make amends. They made a huge mistake, but they love you both. I could see the pain in David's eyes, and I felt a twinge of sympathy for him. He was caught in the middle of this mess, and I knew he was hurting just as much as we were. David, we're planning to go to family therapy. We hope it can help us resolve this. But it will take time, and we need to see real change. David nodded. I understand. I'll do whatever I can to support you too. I'll talk to Emily and Sarah and try to make them see how wrong they were. The next few days were filled with phone calls and research. Finally, we found a family therapist, Dr. Laura Thompson, who had excellent reviews and seemed experienced in handling family conflicts. We scheduled our first session for the following week. As the day of the first therapy session approached, I felt a mix of nervousness and hope. I was nervous about facing Emily and Sarah again, especially after everything that had happened. But I also hoped that this therapy could be the beginning of the end of our problems. On the day of the therapy, we all met at Dr. Thompson's office. Emily and Sarah looked uncomfortable, avoiding our eyes. Robbie and I sat on one couch, while David took a chair next to us. Emily and Sarah sat on another couch, looking like they would rather be anywhere else. Dr. Thompson, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a warm smile, started the session by explaining the ground rules. The most important thing here is honesty. We all need to be open about our feelings and listen without interrupting when others are speaking. Is that clear? We all nodded, though I could tell Robbie was still tense. Then Dr. Thompson turned to Emily. Emily, could you start by sharing how you feel about what's happened? Emily took a deep breath, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. I know what I did was wrong. I'm so sorry, Robbie and Lily. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I just got caught up in a stupid bet and didn't consider how much it would hurt you too. Robbie's face hardened. You didn't consider? Mom, this isn't just some small thing. You and Sarah were betting on my marriage, on my relationship with the woman I love. How could you do this? Sarah finally spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry too. I was so stupid. I thought it was just a harmless joke. I never meant to hurt you, Robbie, or you, Lily. I looked at them both, my heart heavy. It's not just about the bet. It's about how you made me feel. You called me Robbie's best friend, like I wasn't really part of the family. It made me feel like an outsider, like you didn't really accept me as his wife. Dr. Thompson nodded. These are very real feelings, Lily, and we need to address them. Emily, Sarah, can you understand how your actions made Lily feel? Emily and Sarah both nodded, looking ashamed. The rest of the session was filled with more tears, apologies, and difficult conversations. But for the first time since the truth came out, I felt like we were making some progress. At the end of the session, Dr. Thompson gave us some homework. I want each of you to write down how you feel about this situation and what you hope to get out of these therapy sessions. We'll discuss them in our next session. As we left the office, I wasn't sure if everything would be okay, but I knew we had taken the first step towards healing, and that was a start. The days following our first family therapy session were a strange mix of hope and unease. I found myself constantly thinking about the upcoming sessions and how they would unfold. Robbie seemed preoccupied too, but he was trying his best to stay strong for both of us. David, who was still staying with us, was clearly making an effort to be a buffer between Robbie and his mother and sister. He often shared stories about Robbie's childhood, attempting to lighten the mood and remind us of the happy times we had spent as a family. One evening, as we were having dinner, David brought up the memory of Robbie's first baseball game. He was so nervous, but he gave it his all, David said, a fond smile on his face. You should have seen the look on his face when he hit the ball for the first time. It was pure joy. Robbie smiled at the memory, and for a moment, the tension in the room seemed to ease. But then his smile faded, and he said, "I just wish things could go back to the way they were. I never thought something like this could happen in our family." I reached out and took his hand. "We're working on it, Robbie. The therapy is a start, and I'm sure we can get through this." The day of the second therapy session arrived. As we walked into Dr. Thompson's office, I could feel the tension in the air. Emily and Sarah were already there, sitting side by side, looking a bit more composed than last time. Dr. Thompson greeted us with her usual warm smile and then began the session. "I hope you all had a chance to complete the homework I assigned last time. Let's start by sharing what you wrote." Robbie was the first to speak. He took out a piece of paper and cleared his throat. "I wrote about how betrayed I feel. I've always been so close to my family, and this bet felt like a knife in the back. I love Lily more than anything, and the thought that my own mother and sister were waiting for our marriage to fail. It's really hard to take." His voice cracked, and I could see the pain in his eyes. Emily looked down at her hands, her face flushed. "I understand, Robbie. I'm so sorry. What I did was unforgivable, and I'll do anything to make it up to you and Lily." Then Sarah shared her thoughts. "I realized how thoughtless I was. I took our family for granted and didn't consider the consequences of my actions. I want to make amends and hope that one day both of you can forgive me." When it was my turn, I took a deep breath. I wrote about the sense of isolation I felt. Every time you called me Robbie's best friend instead of his wife, it was like a reminder that I wasn't fully part of the family. I want to be a part of this family, but I need to feel accepted and respected. Dr. Thompson listened intently and then said, "These are very powerful emotions. It's clear that this situation has deeply affected your family relationships. Now, let's talk about what we can do to move forward." The ensuing discussion was intense. We talked about setting boundaries, improving communication, and rebuilding trust. Emily and Sarah promised to be more mindful of their words and actions, and Robbie and I agreed to try to be more open-minded and forgiving. But just as we were about to wrap up the session, a new issue emerged. Emily brought up the topic of the money involved in the bet. "I know this is a sensitive subject, but we should talk about what to do with the money. It doesn't feel right for any of us to keep it." Robbie's eyes widened in anger. "You're bringing up money now? This isn't about the money. This is about our relationship, our family." Dr. Thompson quickly intervened. "Robbie, I understand your frustration, but Emily is right. We need to deal with this. The money represents the mistake that was made, and handling it properly can be part of the healing process." After a heated argument, we decided to donate the money to a local charity that supported families. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right thing to do. As we left the therapy session, I could feel that there was still a long way to go. The wounds were deep, and trust had been broken. But for the first time, I felt like we were all on the same page, working towards the same goal of healing our family. In the weeks that followed, we continued with the therapy sessions. Each session was filled with tears and laughter as we delved deeper into our feelings and tried to understand each other better. We also started spending more time together as a family, with David playing a crucial role in bringing us all together. One weekend, David suggested a family picnic at the park. At first, Robbie and I were hesitant, but we decided to give it a try. It was a beautiful day, and as we spread out the picnic blanket and shared sandwiches and fruits, I could see the tension slowly dissipating. Sarah even brought a frisbee, and we took turns tossing it around. For a moment, it felt like we were a normal family again, enjoying each other's company without the underlying issues. But just when things seemed to be improving, a new challenge presented itself. Robbie's job offered him a promotion, but it required him to move to another city for a few months. This added a new layer of stress to our already fragile family situation. Robbie was in a dilemma. On one hand, the promotion was an excellent opportunity for his career. On the other hand, he didn't want to leave me alone during this difficult time, especially with our family issues still unresolved. I could see the stress on his face, and I knew I had to support him. "Robbie, this is a great opportunity for you. I'll be okay here. We can still attend the therapy sessions via video calls, and I'll stay in touch with your parents and sister." Robbie looked at me, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Are you sure, Lily? I don't want to leave you to deal with all this alone." I smiled and kissed him. "I'm sure. We're a team, remember? We'll get through this, no matter what." With this decision made, Our next challenge was to break the news to Robbie's family and figure out how to manage this long-distance relationship while still working on our family problems. As Robbie prepared to leave for the new city to take on his promotion, the atmosphere at home was a complex blend of excitement for his career and anxiety about the distance. I tried to keep myself busy, focusing on work and maintaining the connection with Robbie's family. The day before his departure, we had a quiet dinner at home. Robbie was unusually subdued, his mind clearly preoccupied with the upcoming move and the state of our family. "Lily, I'm really worried about leaving you here," he said, his voice filled with concern. "I know you said you'll be okay, but I can't help but feel guilty." I reached across the table and took his hand. "Robbie, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you. I'm proud of you, and I know we can get through this. Your family and I will be here waiting for you." The next morning, I drove Robbie to the airport. The ride was mostly silent, the weight of his absence already hanging over us. At the airport, we shared a long, emotional embrace. "I love you, Lily. I'll call you every day," he whispered in my ear before he walked through the security checkpoint. After Robbie left, I threw myself into work, but the evenings at home were painfully quiet. I started to rely more on the communication with Emily, Sarah, and David. We had regular video calls, and slowly but surely, our relationship seemed to be mending. One evening, while I was on a video call with Emily and Sarah, Sarah suddenly blurted out, "Lily, there's something else we need to tell you." My heart skipped a beat, fearing the worst. Emily shot Sarah a look, but Sarah continued, "Remember when we said we were just betting on how long your marriage would last? Well, there was more to it." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. "What do you mean there was more?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily took a deep breath and said, We had a deal with a family friend. If your marriage ended within a certain time, they would invest in a business venture we had been planning. We were so caught up in our own greed and stupidity that we didn't realize how much it would hurt you and Robbie." I was stunned. The betrayal seemed to run even deeper than I had thought. I sat there, speechless for a moment, as the implications of their words sank in. "How could you?" I finally managed to say. "Not only were you betting on our marriage, but you were using it for some business gain." Sarah started to cry. "We're so sorry, Lily. We've been trying to find a way to tell you. We've already called off the deal with the friend, but we know that doesn't make up for what we've done." I was angry, hurt, and confused. I thought we had been making progress in our relationship, but this new revelation felt like a huge setback. "I need some time to think about this," I said, ending the video call. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. I couldn't believe that there was an even darker side to their actions. After a while, I decided to call Dr. Thompson. I needed to talk to someone who could help me process this new information. Dr. Thompson listened patiently as I recounted what Emily and Sarah had told me. "Lily, this is a very difficult situation," she said. "But remember, healing is a process and setbacks are normal. What's important now is how you choose to respond. You can let this new information derail all the progress you've made, or you can use it as an opportunity to have an even more honest and open conversation with your family." I thanked Dr. Thompson for her advice and decided to take a day to calm down before reaching out to Emily and Sarah again. In the meantime, I also called Robbie and told him what had happened. He was furious. "I can't believe they would do something like this," he said. "I'm coming back home right now." I tried to calm him down. "Robbie, you can't just leave your new job. We'll figure this out. Let's give it a little time and see how we can move forward." After much persuasion, Robbie agreed to stay at his new job, but he was still seething with anger. I knew that this new revelation had tested our relationship and our family to the limit, but I was determined to find a way to overcome it. The next day, I called Emily and Sarah and asked them to come over. When they arrived, we sat in the living room, and I could see the guilt and shame on their faces. "I'm still very hurt by what you've done," I said. "But I also know that we need to talk about this if we want to move forward." Over the next few hours, we had a long, emotional conversation. Emily and Sarah apologized profusely, and I could see that they were truly remorseful. We talked about how we could rebuild trust and how they could make amends. By the end of the day, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was a small step, but I knew that as long as we were all willing to be honest and work together, there was a chance for our family to heal. In the days following the explosive revelation, the air in the house seemed thick with unspoken tension. I was still reeling from the shock of Emily and Sarah's betrayal, and the once promising path to healing our family now seemed clouded with uncertainty. I decided to take Dr. Thompson's advice to heart and focus on the process of rebuilding trust. Emily and Sarah, for their part, were making a visible effort to show their remorse. They started sending me regular messages, not just about the mundane matters of daily life, but also expressing their deep-seated regret for what they had done. One afternoon, Sarah came over with a bouquet of flowers. "Lily, I know these can't make up for everything, but I hope they can at least be a small gesture of how sorry I am," she said, her eyes downcast. I took the flowers, a bit taken aback by her gesture. "Thank you, Sarah. It's the thought that counts." Emily, on the other hand, invited me over for a home-cooked meal. "I know I can't turn back time, but I want to show you that I value you as part of our family," she said when I arrived. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of awkwardness. The conversation was stilted at first, but as we talked, I began to see a glimmer of the warm-hearted woman I had once known. Meanwhile, Robbie was struggling to focus on his new job. He was constantly on edge, worried about me and the state of our family. We had long, emotional conversations over the phone, where he expressed his anger and frustration. "I just can't believe they would do this, Lily. I feel so betrayed," he said one evening. I tried to soothe him. "I know, Robbie, but we're working through it. Your mom and Sarah are trying to make amends, and I'm trying to be open-minded." Despite the efforts at reconciliation, a new complication emerged. The family friend, who had been part of the ill-fated business deal, started causing trouble. He was angry that the deal had been called off and began spreading rumors about our family in the community. One day, I received a strange call from a neighbor. "Lily, I heard some disturbing rumors about your family. Is everything okay?" they asked. I was taken aback. "What kind of rumors?" I asked, my heart pounding. The neighbor hesitated. "Well, they say that your marriage is on the rocks, and that there's been some sort of financial scandal involving your in-laws." I was furious. I knew immediately who was behind these rumors. I called Emily and Sarah and told them what had happened. "We have to do something about this," I said. "We can't let this person ruin our reputation." Emily and Sarah were equally outraged. "We'll take care of it, Lily," Emily said. "We won't let him get away with this." They decided to confront the family friend directly. It was a tense meeting with raised voices and heated arguments. But in the end, the friend realized that he was in the wrong and agreed to stop spreading the rumors. This incident, strange as it may seem, actually brought us closer together. We had faced a common enemy and emerged stronger. Emily, Sarah, and I started to communicate more openly and honestly, sharing our fears and hopes for the future of our family. Dr. Thompson, when we told her about the events, was pleased with our progress. "This is a great example of how adversity can bring a family closer," she said. "You've all shown remarkable resilience." As the weeks passed, Robbie's work situation began to stabilize, and he started to feel more confident in his new role. He also noticed the positive changes in my relationship with his family. "I'm so proud of you, Lily," he said during one of our video calls. "You're handling this so well." I smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. We're all working together, Robbie, and I think we're finally on the right track.
If this story touched you, show your support by liking and subscribing. Your encouragement helps us keep sharing memorable stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.